I never thought there will be a day when I'll be talking about things like that. I never thought I'll be talking about Russia invading Ukraine. Hello, I'm Dr. Sam. This is Dr. Sam's Health, and today I've got a very unusual video to make. I never thought I would be talking about things like that on my channel. I always want to talk about health, nutrition, exercise. Yes, I spoke about COVID. Yes, I spoke about different little things in my life, but today, something happened. Actually, technically, it happened yesterday in Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. And if you don't know who I am, I'm a medical doctor who was born and raised in Ukraine. And I came to Canada 14, 15 years ago. I became a doctor in Ukraine and I came here. I went through the licensing process and I have been working in Canada for 12, 13 years as a psychiatrist. And I'm always trying to make my videos non-biased, non-political, and today I think I'll have to break this rule. But I literally did not think that I can remain silent and not to talk about these things. Regular disclaimers, I'm not going to give any kind of medical advice. I'm expressing only my opinions, specifically on political topics. I did not hold anybody else accountable for whatever I'm talking about. These are, again, only just my opinions as a person who was brought up in Ukraine, came to Canada, and somebody who has lots of Ukrainian friends, lots of Russian friends, people on the ground in Ukraine. These are very sad times. I never thought would be in this situation. I will start with likely talking to Mr. Putin. Likely he won't hear me, but I have to say it. You are a piece of something. Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, always considered to be the same people. Since the Soviet Union collapsed, we called ourselves brothers and sisters. We called ourselves brother nations. Your predecessors, Ukrainian presidents, Belarus presidents, were calling us brother nations. You know that Kiev is the mother of Russian cities. It's an old expression because we believe that lots of Slavic roots are coming from Kiev and Rus. Lots of people migrated from Kiev and Rus to Novgorod, to Moscow, then they kind of reconquered these territories. But we all knew that the history of Russia and Ukraine is closely intertwined. We all have relatives in Russia. Russians have relatives in Ukraine. We always were brothers and sisters. And right now you have people bombarding Kiev. This is unbelievable. My parents right now in Kharkiv, my hometown, and I never thought it would come to that, but I was talking to them and they were telling me about the convoys of military vehicles going through our city. They were talking about the explosions, the shelling that is happening. Lots of people are hiding in basements of their houses, condos. It is unbelievable. People are fighting. People are dying. I've read the news. I know how many Ukrainian soldiers and civilians have died in the last 24 hours. And I know that you have lost some troops. And I cannot believe that you could order something like that. I cannot believe that you could use this false flag operation claiming that you're going to prevent the genocide of Russians in Ukraine. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable, and it's beyond reprehensible. What you're doing right now secured your place in the world as the most hated, the pretty much the worst villain of this century so far. I don't want to compare you to some Austrian German gentleman from last century, but you are literally repeating his steps. Annexing Crimea when the country was in quite disarray. You then, I know for sure, I know people there, You were supporting separatist movement in Donetsk and Luhansk areas, and you were fueling the conflict there for several years, for 8 years, I think. And now you are claiming that people are trying to kill Russians there, and that's why you're going to invade. You're going to invade them. You're going to invade the rest of the Ukraine. You're bombarding Kiev, Kharkiv, Kherson, Sumy. It is unbelievable. And I know for sure that I will not forget it. Nobody I know will forget it. Ukrainians will not forget it, and the world will not forgive you. That's the first thing. The second thing is something about the world. Western world, specifically European countries, United States, Canada. Guys, you were playing with Ukraine. Ukraine is like literally a pawn in your hands. Ukraine became independent country, and it had different options. One of them was to stick to Russia. Another one was to move towards Europe, and or they could remain neutral. Essentially, Ukrainian people made their choice. We made our choice in 2004. I was there on Maidan, the Independence Square in Kiev, the one that you are bombarding right now, by the way. I mean, Russians. And when I'm saying Russians, I mean Russians army. I know for sure that lots of Russians do not condone that. Lots of Russians are against that. I know that Russians are protesting against this invasion, but your government, Russia's government, is terrible. Mr. Putin, you are a sinner. It's a terrible thing that you are doing right now. So I'm returning to the other world leaders. And I will repeat, you've been toying with Ukraine. We were a pawn in your hands. We chose Europe in 2004 during Orange Revolution. We chose Europe when we removed Yanukovych. It cost us a lot. There were people who died in this square when we were fighting for our independence, protesting, with tanks on the streets. We paid for our independence and for European aspirations by pretty much having Crimea taken from us. Then we paid for our independence and for our European aspirations, striving to join NATO by having this slow conflict in Luhansk and Donetsk. And we have heard promises that we will become part of European Union, that you will support us, that there will be some strong responses, Russia will be stopped. One more thing I would like to remind you is that there was, I think it was Budapest Memorandum, when Ukraine, that used to be a nuclear country, we used to have nuclear weapons, Ukraine exchanged these nuclear weapons for guarantees from several European countries and Russia of our sovereignty and independence. And where are these guarantees right now? One of the guarantors is attacking us, and I don't see much happening in response to that. Sanctions, they will not help. I don't even know who thinks that these sanctions are going to help. They did not help in the past several years. Russia has invaded Georgia. Russia has taken Crimea. Russia has done lots of stuff in Middle East recently. They were supporting this conflict in Donetsk and Luhansk area. Right now, Russian tanks, Russian rockets are attacking Ukrainian cities. And do you really think that the country that has half of Europe on oil and gas dependence will actually respond to your sanctions? They don't care. They have money, they have huge country, the largest, I think it's still the largest in the world, and they will survive. Some Russians will suffer, actually just regular guys like myself. I mean, I'm regular Ukrainian, regular Canadian, but regular people, regular folks will suffer. But Putin, his friends, his cronies will not suffer. They do not care. And they will keep doing what they are doing. They have done it to several countries already, and I don't know who is next. This situation, as I said, looks like the 1930s, late 1930s in Europe, when some gentleman has taken over Czech Republic, then Germany and Russia split Poland, and then lots of other things ensued. And I think that lots of world leaders were very slow to respond then. The League of Nations then was very slow to respond and was proven to be useless. And I'm afraid to say it, but I think that United Nations are exactly that right now. So you have to do more, much more than just sanctions. I think you have to stop all your communications with Russia. I think you should stop sending them goods. I think you should stop taking their oil, their gas. You should remove them from the government bodies, that the international bodies like United Nations, because they are there and they continue using their rights of veto, their voting. They are still represented on international arena, in an international space, and I do not think that's the way you should treat aggressors like that. Russia right now, with Putin being its head of state, and I would say the master of the state or owner of the state, it is an obvious aggressor and they have to be stopped. And I'm really sorry to say these things, and I know that some Russian people will hear me and think that, oh, this guy hates Russians. I don't hate Russians. You are my brothers and sisters. And it's saddening, to say the least, to see that people are dying because of some little man's ambitions. And the last thing that I would like to say is, I would like to say to my Ukrainian friends and everybody in Ukraine, stay strong. These are very tough times. I hope we will all survive. I know for sure that not everybody will survive that. I know that there will be losses, unfortunately. There'll be losses during the military operations, casualties. There'll be people who will be dead because they didn't receive medical help. They didn't receive medications. People who will die because of some random acts of vandalism, robberies, lawlessness in general, because they couldn't get away from certain zones. There will be refugees. There will be all kinds of mental health issues, physical health issues, lots of criminal activities. It is terrible. It is terrible that things like that are happening in Europe in 2022. So I'm really sorry. This is a very sad evening, and I wish everybody who listens to my videos to have a good night's sleep. And I want you guys to think about the future and what we can all do to prevent this happening again and to stop it. But I'm pretty sure that, I hope that European leaders, the leaders of the United States, Canada, Australia, Commonwealth countries in general, will intervene. And these interventions will be much more serious than just sanctions, because these sanctions do not work. Once again, thank you. I'm not that religious, but I will pray for all Ukrainians. Stay safe.